Hello and welcome to the big picture. As the NDA government completed its 2 years in office, the big picture over the last 3 days has been looking at various aspects of governance. While yesterday we looked at the foreign policy and the day before at the economy, today we will look at the social situation in the country. The NDA government under Prime Minister Modi came into office with its pre-poll promise of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, a slogan which promised to take everyone along and also ensure equal development for all. Has this promise been fulfilled? Do all sections of the people across the country feel safe and part of the development process? What have been the problems faced? And what have been the responses of the government to the concerns of the people on the social front? We will discuss all this today with Professor S.S. Jodhka, a sociologist at the Center for the Study of Social Systems at the JNU, Ashok Tandon, senior journalist, Kamal Farooqui, former chairman, Delhi Minorities Commission, Professor Rajvir Sharma, a RSS thinker, and Saba Naqvi, senior journalist and author. Welcome to all of you. Professor Jodhka, you think this Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, which continues to be the slogan of this government, has it been fulfilled, at least in these last 2 years? Do you see that process being on?
I think there are many questions that have come up in last 2 years. And I think the biggest question that confronts us as a nation today is, what do we mean by sub? When we say Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, it automatically assumes recognition of different kinds of diversities. Our country is marked by diversities of region, language, caste, community, religion, but also diversities of economic status. There are lots of people who are very poor, there are people who are chronically poor, there are middle classes, there are aspiring middle classes, and obviously there are then upper middle classes, rich people living in urban areas, rural areas. So I think this recognition that India is a country of diversities, and diversities are of different kinds. It's not one simple kind of diversity of Hindu and Muslim. There are also diversities of poor and rich, diversity of rural and urban. And these kinds of diversities, even though there is a kind of implicit understanding, but there is no confrontation, there is no direct recognition of these diversities in the policy statement, in action, where one is trying to accommodate them, where one is trying to say, yes, this is what we mean by Sabka Saath. I think that's where conceptually, I think we need to think a little more about these diversities and bring them on table, not try to run away from them, not try to kind of feel uncomfortable or embarrassed about these identities, not try to, in a sense, bully one community over the other or those. I think these are the issues that should have been thought about. I think they need to be talked about much more, and they are not really being taken seriously as they ought to be.
Professor Jodhka, when you are saying that these diversities have to be taken into account when you talk of sub, is this a problem in the last 2 years, or is it a problem we have encountered in this country for a long time?
This is a problem. It's not really a problem. This is a feature of our country. There has been a recognition of this subject right from day one, when India was trying to kind of get rid of colonial rule. We have had partition. We have also had serious problems of this diversity. But I think there is need to be constant engagement with these diversities. We have had, occasionally we recognize these diversities, but sometimes we also feel embarrassed or we try to ignore those diversities. And the fact is that these diversities are increasing day by day. The way in which India is developing, inequalities, for example, new kinds of inequalities, the old kind of inequalities that intersect with new kind of inequalities, like inequality of rural and urban, it has become much bigger. It may not be because of the government, but also the way India is developing, the kind of neoliberal urbanization, the manner in which it is happening. We are no longer an agricultural country. Agriculture contributes very little to the larger economy. People don't want to stay in the village. So these diversities are growing, and there is need to engage with these diversities, understand them, and then deal with them in perspective of development. I think development, Vikas, again, is very, very important word, and I think it's rightly said, Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. Everybody wants Vikas. Nobody wants to stay back in the village or in a tribal belt, in kind of a ghetto of their own communities. Everybody wants to be included. Vikas is not simply a question of economic growth. Vikas is also inclusion and participation, and kind of recognition.
Inclusion, that's the word, Ashok Tandon. Inclusion. This was spoken about. This is always spoken about. But do we see it happening? There have been fault lines. You would agree in the last 2 years.
Of course,
I'm talking with them.
No, I fully
Since we are
agree.
discussing 2 years of this government, we are sticking to what happened.
But
2 years.
Girish, my argument is that in a diverse country like India, as the diversity my friend has explained, India is also a federal country.
It's also a
Federal nation where the responsibility of ensuring what we are discussing today does not lie only on the central government. So sometimes we feel that on issues like this, we feel that states, they just simply think that they don't have any responsibility. No, if we go into certain instances which we have witnessed in the last 2 years, most of these instances were happening in the states.
and
the
center had no role to
governments
play.
were-
Center had no role to play. in
No,
this.
I'm not saying center had no role to play. But after all, whose responsibility is to ensure law and order? Whose responsibility ensure that justice is done to the poor and the downtrodden and the victims? But here, my argument, I would like this debate to be opened on this issue. Sometimes we feel that the state governments, I think, intentionally show that, well, they can't do anything, as if it is not their responsibility. So therefore, diversity is of course there. As you said, there has to be pluralism. But the responsibility of ensuring what my friend has earlier said does not lie only on the central government.
Okay, so
and
you're
states too have a role to
No,
play.
some of these issues, Saba, you wanted to react.
Yeah, I want to react very strongly.
Law and order. No, is it a law and order issue?
No, you're asking me about is it a social, the social condition in the country. Let's be very clear. There is a very strong government in power at the center after many years, and they are very, very strongly backed by the RSS, which regardless, Narendra Modi can go to Iran and quote Ghalib. You have cadres in Delhi who are defacing the walls, where some young men have written a verse in Urdu. So you have a statement of intent, even by the Prime Minister, about Sabka Vikas and pluralism, but the force on the ground is a cadre which only mobilizes through hatred of other people, most often communities, which is the Muslim community. That is the demonized figure. So you have lynchings. You can blame the state government, but who are the people who go there? And you will find BJP MPs are linked to the kind of people there. I mean, look at this. There have been lynchings. There have been cows are the issue. Bharat Mata is an issue. There are new nationhood tests which are designed to make minority communities fail. And I disagree also with what the learned professor said. There are many tribals who want to stay on their lands. They want to hang on to their lands. They don't want to leave it. So even this narrative of development, people do not want to be thrown into some vortex of some world where there are bullet trains. People want to just hang on to their zameen. Jal, jungle, zameen, these are things that human beings want. And these are so, but because you can cobble up majorities with small sections of society in a first past the post system. So the BJP is doing very, very well at working on the process of electoral majorities that exclude others. And a lot of the mobilization across the country, what are the issues beyond the fact, I mean, what are the issues that the cadre has raised? Should I go through the list of what happened in UP since they came to power? Since that is my home state. They started with a campaign on love jihad. You know, first of all, the 2014 election, whose anniversary is now being celebrated, the 2 years, it began in the context of the riots in Muzaffarnagar. The minute they came to power, they began with a campaign on love jihad, which went on and on and on and on in Western UP. After that, you had lynchings. You even had, Dadri became famous. You had 3 people being assassinations. You've had assassinations of non-Muslim individuals who questioned extremism of the Hindu right.
You made Rajvir Sharma, Professor Rajvir Sharma. How do you react to that? That she's making a direct charge that, you know, there is something else happening at the government level, and at the ground, the cadres are doing something else. Would you agree with that?
I would like to place it in a different way. In fact, sometimes the biased kind of judgments by the civil society activists and also the politicians. For example, right now it was being said that RSS is dictating. I mean, it is sweeping kind of a remark being made on a public forum without any kind of evidence that it is RSS who was involved in lynching and all these things, even defacing the wall. How can we say that it is RSS who is involved? But anyway, leave it aside. What I am trying to say is this, that India, of course, I would agree with Professor Jodhka that India is a very diverse kind of a country. It's a plural society. And in a plural society, there are competing interests. So therefore, some kind of, social strife may be taken as a part of a natural way, because every competing interest would like to have the major part of the cake. Sometimes it has economic reasons, sometimes religious, sometimes caste. And
What about the political reasons?
no political
The
reasons
social
also,
strife caused by political reasons.
I'm saying this, that mostly the social strife, the social conflict is the creation and sustaining of the political minds.
Political interests.
Yes, vested interests.
Yes.
For example, even in Dadri, it was a very sad incident. It should not have taken place. But to paint Dadri as a general pattern of social relationship, it's a people-to-people relationship. Harmony, social harmony relates to people relationship. And when it comes to people relationship, I can say India is one of the best examples of very harmonious relationships at that level. Some stray incidents do take place which should not have taken place. But the political parties do try to paint it as there is something which has taken place. All of a sudden, it was not taken place
about
earlier.
political parties. This is not just about political parties. We are not. That's why there is no political person on this panel. We are not talking about what the political parties
We shall have to analyze the political reasons too.
We should. But the question is not just political. It's beyond. Questions are being raised by people beyond politics also. We'll get Kamal Farooqui. So one of the aspects which Ashok Tandon speaks about is about how the state governments, just to blame the center for everything and absolving the states of its responsibility is not done. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely right. I agree with Ashok Tandon sir that the states have got their own responsibilities in the federal system. It is not the center alone which can be blamed for each kind of law and order problem. But look at the whole situation in the country. In fact, as Saba very rightly said, that now we have got one of the strongest government at the center, and most of the country, the major states in the northwest and other places, it is being governed by the BJP people only. So you cannot just say that something happened in UP, we don't care about it. But what about the Madhya Pradesh? What about the Maharashtra? What about the other states where the things are happening? So what actually is happening? The Honorable Prime Minister has very rightly said, and we at that particular point of time, we appreciated and we still believe that he will ultimately come to the Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, because if he fails in it, he will be failing the entire nation in fact. It has to be Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. You cannot force your choice of what to eat, what not to eat, what to drink, what not to drink, how to follow your religion or how not to follow your religion. The latest example is the direct interference in the personal laws by the minister. The minority minister, which is supposed to look after the interests of the minorities, she brazenly talked about day before yesterday about taking away the rights of the minorities under Article 25, 26 to observe their own religion. It is not for the Muslims alone. If at all we are talking about the Uniform Civil Code, we can have a detailed discussion with all the countrymen that whether it is possible in this country or not. But look at the behavior of the minister itself. She should have kept quiet, because once she is saying this, I'm sorry, my brother in RSS, in fact, they have not been in a position to control. I'm not saying RSS, I'm talking about the BJP government. And if the RSS will speak to the government to don't make these kind of a statement, whether it is one Minister of Minority Affairs or the other ministers who have been talking day in, day out, or even the MPs in the parliament, or even some of the people who have been rewarded for the plunking post, in fact, for creating a hatred among the country. Among the countrymen, in fact. So what I am trying to tell you, it's very rightly said by Professor Saab and Ashok Bhai also, and other people also. We have got a very diversified nation, in fact. And when we are talking about Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, you cannot paint the entire country with one philosophy. Where the entire country is blessed with all the religions of the world. We have the place here in India, and they have been allowed to flourish. Thanks to our own culture, but this should not be taken away. So what we feel that, and I have been saying right on the very first day, I said, I would like to remain hungry. I may not be interested in having the full meal, but I would definitely like to live with my neighbors in a very friendly environment. This thing is not happening. The creation of the environment in the country, in fact, which is the sole responsibility. I don't agree with my RSS brother, in fact. We have got the Home Minister, and I'm telling you the personal experience. I have told him while I was in one of the delegations that just in Western UP, what is happening? An army of 20,000 people is being prepared to fight for the some cause, the private army. And day before yesterday, we saw it that the Bajrang Dal people are giving the training, armed training to the people. And when we talk about it on the channels, they say no, it is our fundamental right. So is it can somebody tell them?
Sir.
Should somebody tell them?
I think you made a point, sir.
Right.
No, you made a point. You wanted to react.
I just wanted to say one thing.
Yes.
That India's even civilizational background is such that it's very robust kind of a society having the capacity to accommodate all differences.
No, accommodate all differences is fine.
And also deal with the differences.
Can I?
Okay.
In fact, if I want to make a point, actually India is a very wonderful plural society where we've all lived with various differences. But if you do a real study, you will find that the differences are played on only by politicians and for political interests. So if you have social strife in parts of India, you find the linkage with some kind of electoral or political strategy or a larger game plan. It is always that. Otherwise, inherently, the way things were, the way things should be, we are actually a very diverse society.
Saba has a point.
See, I'm glad. First of all, that India is a democracy and there is a freedom of speech and expression, and that is why we are having a debate here.
Absolutely.
But I would like to highlight the role of the media in India, which has never condoned or in fact supported any such thing. And it is largely on account of the media highlighting such quote unquote stray incidents or aberrations that the government, all the government I would say, including the central government, have been forced to look into such things, and remedial measures have also been initiated.
That is the question. That's
so
the question.
That speaks
the question is, have remedial measures been taken? That's the question. Professor Jodhka, do you see the remedial measures being taken?
Yeah, that's
because what is happening is well known to everybody. We have been witnessing it. Even the other day, every other day we see this kind of strife happening in some part of the country or the other. But what are the remedial measures which are happening?
I think my own feeling is that we are actually going in the opposite direction. We may kind of celebrate our civilizational past and we might say that we are a great country where diversities have always existed and survived, but that is not the case. We have had also massive kind of violence, not only violence of partition when India or subcontinent was divided and the number of people who died just because, we could have had a peaceful division also. That did not happen if we were so kind of civilizationally civilized. We have also had violence of caste of all kinds. We still have very strong patriarchal society. So when we are talking about diversity, it is not simply question of color and question of, my food and your food. These are real questions of life and death. The question of poverty, for example, today is not simply question of calories. Inequalities are not simple question of income disparities. There are people who don't get anything to eat at all. There are people who have kind of, no place to live and sleep, and their number is not very small. They might be 2%, 3%, 5%, but the absolute number is very large. But the people who are excluded from what is the India story, their number is very large, 60%, 70%. The people who live on borderlines, even though our poverty levels have come down, but those who live just on the borderlines, their number is very small. And these are not simply economic categories. One needs to recognize these realities and needs to keep talking about it all the time.
Okay.
We don't need to be ashamed about them. These are realities. Unless we confront them, we cannot become a strong nation.
Absolutely.
Unless we confront them, we cannot be proud of ourselves. I want to do that. That's what government should do, and that is not being confronted as it should be. There is some thinking about it. I'm not saying that there is no thinking or no action, but I think it needs to be taken much more seriously.
Professor Rajvir Singh, that's the question. How seriously are these problems being tackled? On the one hand, let us be very frank in this discussion. The fact is that there is a BJP government, there is an RSS which is very pretty strong in these matters, and certain of the things which are happening are being connected to RSS or its sister organizations. So, how do you see the government reacting to this? How do you think the government should react to it?
I think as a dispassionate observer of the situation, I can say that over a period of time, some fringe elements might be speaking something at one or the other time, but the Prime Minister...
Not just speaking, acting also.
But the Prime Minister has very categorically stated at different times that in India, everyone has equal rights. Constitution gives equal opportunity to all, and therefore we will have to respect each other's beliefs as well as every kind of freedom that one enjoys. And I hope that this will carry a weight with those who are engaged in these activities. And they have also had it too. Now coming to it is an unfortunate commentary on the ground situation that there are still after 67 years or so of independence, we are passing through the inequalities, poverty and also deprivations. But if you look at the initiatives taken by the Modi government in the last 2 years, you will find that a very determined effort seems to be made to deal with the problems of poverty. There are so many programs that have been made.
Yes. As far as poverty
and,
programs,
only thing is,
nobody can. I don't think there are any two thoughts on that. But while coming to the social
as an honest analysis,
yes,
we will have to say that the steps that have been taken. What has happened in the past also? It is not that policies were not there for dealing with poverty, but there was a lack of political will to implement those policies, and that is why we are still there where we were. And
that's okay.
The change seems...
No, sir, but as far as that situation is concerned, as far as fighting poverty, these are all okay. I mean, we will agree, all of us will agree on that. But when it comes to issues of secularism, issues of liberty, issues of, these are the issues where the problem seems to be.
There is such a clear problem, and the Prime Minister can make 100, to say that people should feel reassured. The Prime Minister means sabka saath, sabka vikas. Everybody is being given that by the Constitution of India. Yes. Let's understand that. That is where we begin. Now, after that, what have politicians done with our rights? And India is full of people who are minorities, who are poor, who are not educated, and all of this. So it is a complete. It's completely being fake to not recognize that the Prime Minister can say whatever he wants, but there have been such shocking instances, and the inability of the political class and the political leadership to say a word condemning them. That is the real failure. If Mr. Modi
would you agree with that?
To condemn,
I would say that there is a concerted effort on the part of some sections of the society to create an artificial fear in the mind of the minorities and create and play the divisive politics.
So you think it is artificial fear?
Yes.
Whatever is there is artificial.
How is it artificial if people are entering
Kamal,
your home?
Mr. Farooqui,
that is what is happening.
Mr. Farooqui, would you
not as a pattern?
How do you respond to that? There is a concerted effort to create an artificial fear, says Professor Sharma.
No, what Singh Sahab has said, in fact, is partly correct, partly incorrect, because whatever he said about the poverty, so the country has developed a lot. We had the Green Revolution, the White Revolution, and poverty, Manarga, etc. Somewhere we failed, somewhere we succeeded, but all the governments, they are doing it, and this government has got the mandate to remove all those kind of things. But at the same time, and this is my appeal to Mr. Singh also, Mr. Modi, of course, Masaki, he has not yet made out any statement which will go against the minorities or something of that kind. But look at the ministers, what he is talking about. If his own cabinet minister is talking about taking away the fundamental rights of the minorities, doesn't he have the right to talk about it? If his own MPs, his own executive committee members, his own ministers, if they are talking something rubbish, doesn't he have in fact, rather, these people are doing disservice to Mr. Modi. And since Mr. Singh organization has got a
Mr. Sharma, sir, is not saying it's Professor Sharma.
A lot of control over all these. I'm sorry, Mr. Sharma. Mr. Sharma's organization has got the largest coverage on all these people. In fact, if RSS says that stop having arms struggle like this, because we have seen what is happening in our neighbors. The same kind of things are happening over there, and they are ruined. Now these small organizations,
okay.
they are creating a kind of force? Why these people? Why even RSS? Why they are not coming out
Okay.
clearly?
No,
Stop
I
it.
think
It is not your responsibility.
Okay,
it is the responsibility of the minister.
Let me get his response before I come to you, sir. Mr. Ashok, you think that the response is where the problems lies? Because as Saba was pointing out, as Kamal Farooqui is pointing out, we are not witnessing the kind of response which should come from the government when these kind of things happen.
See, I think
There are
no.
any number of instances which have happened, but you don't see the Prime Minister talking about it or trying to warn the people who are involved in it.
See, I think from time to time, the concerned ministers have taken note of it. If I am not wrong, even on Dadri and other thing, the Home Minister himself was quite forthright. The only thing is that people expect that the Prime Minister should immediately act and sack the ministers. So that way he would have sacked at least half a dozen ministers by now. But
Please, okay, that's honest.
no, but the thing
half a dozen ministers. You're saying that half the cabinet, not the Council of Ministers, has made intemperate statements.
yeah, but the thing is, Saba, that on such issues which are very serious, which should be taken note of, there is politics also. I'm sorry to bring in politics here because
No, you don't have. There is politics.
Girish,
There's no doubt about it.
Problem is we have so many elections in this country, and sometimes the politicians, including the ministers, they get prompted to address a particular constituency because of the elections. So you would have noticed most of these out of turn statements and
Not just statements.
no,
these are
action
these are
also
actions.
are related with the election politics. So which
No, but how do you deal with that?
No, the thing
So
is,
is it correct?
Who should deal with that?
Shouldn't we
because
control
see,
it?
if one segment is doing
What kind
it,
of message we are
because
sending,
the
sir?
others are also doing it. So it is sometimes a competition between the political class to score a point, but at the end of the day,
At the end of the day, it's the
Mr.
society
Tandon.
which suffers.
no, it does, but at the end of the day, the government
tell me
has a responsibility. So therefore, unless some action in the form of a legislation or an action by
Against-
the government
against
comes
individuals
out,
or people-
so
or
we
a
would have
set of people.
noticed on all such
No.
issues, the government has not come forward with any
Sir, I very
legislative
specific-
measures which could be
Sir, I said-
deemed as something
What-
which is
what
against
can
the
Sir, we don't need a legislation matter.
Exactly.
no, I'm not saying. I'm
Sir,
saying
we
the
don't need a
executive
legislation
orders
matter.
also have not
We
come
need
in.
to-
It is
no, we
just
don't-
rhetoric
No,
by
no,
some
you
political
tell
class
me-
to counter
Sir,
the other
you-
political
sir, you
class.
tell me-
Okay.
No, it's not rhetoric,
Mr.
sir.
Tandon, in
Sir,
that case,
sir, you
then
tell
should
me-
we say
Sir,
that
Mr.
with,
Farooqui, 1 second, sir.
with UP elections round the corner now, we all know.
Sir, I
can
just
we
want-
expect
I just
now
want-
that
1
the worst
second, sir.
things will start happening again? I just want to clarify because I just want to give you a list of some of your MPs.
Sir.
You have Aditya Nath, you have Niranjana, you have Balyan. These are all MPs from Uttar Pradesh. Sakshi Maharaj. These are the Bharatiya Janata Parties, glorious MPs from the state of Uttar Pradesh,
And the
who
minister
won
of
in the
there.
no, and there are 5 or 6. I'll give you the list of all the sadhus, people who make communal statements, and you have an election.
You may
so,
accept, you not accept. They have also the same rights as you have, as I have.
They have
but
every right,
are
but they
these
don't have the
rights-
right to
are
abuse
these-
others and to
no, no,
attack
are they-
others.
what are these
Girish,
rights?
entire kind
Sometimes
of a
these people
situation.
whose names Saba has mentioned,
Girish,
they do for their political survival. That is the most
No,
unfortunate
that's
part
the
of
most
Indian
unfortunate.
politics.
You're very honest, I must say.
Professor Jodhka, is the secular nature of this country under threat? Ultimately, that is the question which has to be asked.
I think this question needs to be asked
Addressed.
all the time. I
Yes.
think what do we mean by secularism? I think we need to also keep reminding ourselves about that. It's not simply a question of just different communities living together. It's also inculcating a kind of value system where we begin to kind of respect each other as individuals and going beyond this whole question of identities and communities. And how do we do that? Where is it that kind of, that's where the question of liberty that you were talking about, that I have my freedom just because I'm an individual. I don't have to prove my identity and then claim that I have fundamental right. Whatever is my identity is my problem. It's not a problem for the nation. Nation should make sure that as individual, I have all the liberty, I have all the
Okay.
freedom as guaranteed to me by the constitution. And that's where the state becomes very critical.
Okay,
That's
sir.
where the government becomes very critical.
I think on that note, we need to end. We completely run out of time. But this is a topic, as Professor Jodhka says, it needs to be addressed periodically, not just periodically, regularly, so that people come out and talk about it, not hide behind certain. And as my other panelists, Ashok, Tandon and all pointing out how politicians are using it for their own benefits, which has resulted in this kind of a strife which we are witnessing in this country. Thanks to all my guests. Please keep watching. We'll come back with another issue, the big picture, same time tomorrow.